Quin Garcia, Managing Director at Autotech Ventures. Welcome to the show, Quin.
Thanks
Hey,
for having me,
Quinn.
guys. Hey, how's it
Yes.
going?
Quin, we're pumped to have you on the show and learn a little bit about your world and what you do. I think all of automotive is interested in Silicon Valley because there's so much thought leadership that comes out of there, and there is tech that comes out of there. You see it there first, and then it ripples through automotive eventually. Give us some perspective. Who are you, Quin, and what do you do in automotive?
Yeah, so I'm one of the managing directors of Autotech Ventures. We're a venture capital firm based out here in Silicon Valley that, as you can imagine, focuses on automotive. And we're very active in what I call auto commerce, and including auto retail and dealers. We specialize in listening to the pain points of dealers and the types of new technologies and innovations they want to grow their business. And then we go out and we search for startup companies that have solutions to those pains. We connect them up with the dealers, so the dealers can then run pilots to test these new technologies and run with the ones that they're excited about. We've invested in about 60 startups over the last 10 years, a bunch of IPOs in our portfolio. Happy to tell you about some of the domains that we're excited about in the auto retail space.
Yeah, what are some of those areas you're excited? Actually, you know what? Before you get into the specific areas, talk to us about your strategy. So it sounds like you make investments in multiple areas, and then you're kind of hoping one of them pops or turns into a high return. How do you find that great idea?
We listen to other people. So on one hand, we're listening to, for example, auto dealers to understand what kinds of solutions they'd like to be a customer of,
Yeah.
right? So we're kind of listening to that voice of the customer, and then we go and we talk with entrepreneurs who have, a wacky idea, a grand vision for how they're going to use technology to automate something for those dealers, right? And then we try to kind of find truth from listening to both sides. We then invest into those startups, and then we connect them up with those dealers. So the
Mm.
dealers can become customers, suppliers, channel partners, and the like, and generate revenue for the startups. And then we
And are you
hope that, yeah,
you,
sorry, go
you
ahead.
hope one of them just blows up, right? And is
That's right.
massively successful. Yeah.
That's
Uh,
right.
Before I ask you if you've had one yet that's just blown up, are you seeing a higher frequency of ideas and investment right now? And what's fueling it today? Why in July of 2025 is there the demand that there is today?
We see about 8,000 startups per year,
In
and we
automotive?
invest, yes, yes,
Wow.
in a mobility. Um, for example, not only in auto retail, but also in repair, in financial
Mm.
services. We've been looking pretty heavily into voice AI chatbots for auto dealers to assist them with scheduling servicing appointments and sales appointments. One example, the fastest growing startup we found in that space is called PAM, PAM. We've also been looking into voice AI chatbots for loan collectors to help them collect on unpaid car loans. We've invested into a company called CollectWise in that space. We've been digging into used electric vehicle auctions, having invested into a company called Plug, founded by Jimmy Douglas. We've been looking into inventory management for dealers and invested into VinQ in that space. We've also been looking into subprime financing,
Hmm.
and we've invested into a startup called Yendo that is a credit card secured by the car title. Uh, we've been looking into ADAS calibrations. So a lot of these cars, when they get a damaged windshield or get into a crash, they need all their ADAS calibrated. It's a pretty laborious process. You can automate some of that. Been looking
What
into
is
remote
ADAS? What is ADAS? Just so I
advanced driver assistance systems.
Okay,
So
very
those
good.
cameras and
Autonomous.
radar
Yeah.
and sonar lidar that's on vehicles that need to be calibrated after the vehicle's damaged.
So have you had in your experience, have you had any of these just blow up where it goes from an idea, one of 8,000 to what's the top idea that you've brought to market that's yielded enormous
Yeah,
success?
Well, Lyft is probably the most, the most famous
Oh,
of the companies that we've invested. The
I
company
haven't
was
heard of
I
that.
founded.
think I heard of that one.
How do you spell that? How do you spell that? Is it
Yeah,
LIFT or
swap a
LYFT?
vowel in there.
Yeah,
Ly.
yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
So you were part of
um,
that. That's cool.
yeah, yeah. A company was founded in my home many years ago, and then our firm invested into the company, and now one of the founders is a venture partner with our firm. Logan Green, the chairman of Lyft, is with our firm now.
Okay.
We've invested into a bunch in, for example, wholesale used car auction
Yeah.
called Frontier Car Group that was acquired for 500 million some years ago as well. And there's probably 7 IPOs in our portfolio, maybe 15 M&A exits, a bunch of deaths. Most startups die, very
Yeah.
honestly, right? But then those that survive end up becoming, Tesla and Lyft and Google and Uber
So,
and so on.
so Quinn, you're an interesting intersection between M&A, the money, the idea, and then automotive. This month, July of 2025, based on your experience with the little known Lyft and other things, what do you think automotive gets wrong about about that new idea, about that new thing that could change like where are we slow and where are we really good? But you got to start with where do we miss it? Like when you sit down with a dealer on a product and you're like, "Hey, I got this idea. It's called Lyft and here's what you do." Like are we good at being early adopters? Are we a little bit slow? What do we get wrong and what do we get right?
It really depends on the mindset of the dealer. I've found some dealers who want to try everything. They want to test out everything, and I'd call it tech progressive, right? They're just constantly thinking of ways to innovate in their business. And I found some dealers who feel like their existing machine is working, and they're reticent to change it. And then there's
Yeah.
spectrum there between.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah. Yeah. Okay. I it's fascinating to me. Are there a type of a startup where you're struggling to get capital for a particular idea, or is there pretty good capital for for good ideas right now?
So one example of a domain that's having difficulty raising funding would be, capital intensive business models such as electric vehicle OEMs and battery manufacturing. During COVID, and I would argue there was a VC bubble, a venture
Yeah.
capital bubble during COVID, probably a bubble of everything. But a lot of companies that were very capital intensive, producing EVs, producing EV infrastructure and battery plants, they were all getting funded and you had this
Yeah.
kind of zero interest rate policy. That zero interest rate policy disappeared, and a lot of the funding dried up for those very capital intensive businesses. We don't invest into, let's say, vehicle OEMs or big capital intensive businesses. We're mainly investing in software and services and AI businesses.
So you're sitting on our show. You got a huge auto dealer audience, and I'm just trying to put the two. Like, do you take a dealer that says, "Hey, I've got a great idea, and I want to, I need to infuse some cash into this idea to make it happen," or are you more? You've got, you found the guy that had the idea, and then you go out and pair it up with a dealer that has the solution. Are you open to dealers reaching out to you with that idea?
Absolutely, absolutely. We've done that. We've done that many times where a dealer has a business idea and they want to spin out of their business. And one example of a company we've invested in is called VinQ.
Oh yeah,
And
yeah,
VinQ is founded by a dealer. Danny Zaslavsky and Chris Hoke are the founders there. And Danny has his dealership, and then he also has his tech startup that we've funded.
yeah. All right. So in automotive right now, AI is a huge. I Yossi never likes it when I say buzzword, but it is kind of a buzzword. Like AI is bantied around very carelessly. Some AI is really well positioned to succeed and win. Other is kind of it's kind of a careless label thrown on a tool, and it may or may not produce that. What's your take on AI and the direction of AI and its ability to help us sell more cars? What's your take on that?
Yeah, there's different forms of AI. You can have visual AI, let's say computer vision. where you're training a machine to look at stuff and visually recognize stuff, right? And so there's quite a few startups out there that are using visual AI to inspect vehicles, right? That's one
Yeah.
workflow that you can automate with AI. Another form of AI, I'll call it, LLM, or large language model AI, or textual AI, where you're training a machine to read and then summarize its findings, like, for example, ChatGPT does. There's a lot of people inside of dealers who read information, then synthesize it and summarize it, right? So a lot of those workflows can be automated. Also within dealers, a lot of people listen to other humans speak. You
Yeah.
can train computers to engage in, let's call it, voice recognition and spoken language recognition, and then you can even train computers to speak themselves, right?
Yeah.
So I mentioned earlier, using usage of voice AI chatbots to schedule service appointments, or sales appointments, and even make outbound calls to consumers. So let's say text-based AI, there's numeric AI, visual AI, voice, auditory AI, all these different functions that we humans do inside a dealership. Many of them can be automated nowadays.
Yeah. So when you look at all of that different technology and you've been exposed to it, you've seen the ideas that have worked, you've seen the ideas that have failed. What is the deal? What does a dealership of 5 years from now look like in your estimation? How much of it ends up being automated using that tech? Is the customer
Mm.
experience different as a result? Or in automotive, do we hang on to kind of our old way?
One, let's call it human dynamic, or one function that I think is very, very difficult to automate with AI, are human relationships.
Yeah.
The trust that we feel toward another human, the relationship that we have with another human, I think is going to be very, very difficult. A lot of the other tasks that I mentioned, I think can be automated over time, but let's say a sense of community and connectedness to another person is really tough. So I think that's one way um, that dealers and other businesses outside of the auto retail space can kind of maintain their, let's say, defensibility against the advent of AI, is focus on those human relationships.
Yeah. We believe that it's that human connection, it's that experience of buying. Again, you know, you think of Lexus, you think of Ferrari, you think of some of these premium brands, and I know they're two very different sides of premium, but it's that human connection that helps deliver that experience. Um, and AI helps to deliver that, but it doesn't deliver it on its own. Or could it, Quinn?
Well, I mean, you're hearing of some people falling in love with ChatGPT and having, romance with with an
Yeah, that's
Yeah.
LLM. So
crazy.
you never know.
Yeah. Yeah.
At least we're hearing the same echoes across the board, right? No one's saying anything to the contrary. AI is going to make everyone's job easier, but it's not going to remove the heavy lifting, right? That's where you need the human touch. So it's going to handle a lot of the low level stuff, the customers that just need to connect simple dots. But everything else, you need an automotive salesperson or manager or whatever the person is to help push that along.
One domain that I think is well suited to application of AI would be vehicle diagnostics
Mm,
and repair, right? So the technicians. I'm a former auto mechanic, right? And we auto mechanics, we follow the scientific method when we're trying to diagnose and repair a vehicle, and that's really, they're very expensive and very well paid, and there's a
yeah.
massive shortage. I think some of those workflows that technicians engage in can be automated with AI over time. I also think that there's remote diagnostics with vehicles increasingly being connected. Can you connect to them over the internet to start to gather some of that onboard diagnostic data to kind of remotely assess what's gone wrong there to improve the consumer's servicing experience?
Yeah. Well, very cool perspective from you today. Super fascinating. It'd be fun to have you back and talk about some of these ideas that you're engaged with today as they grow. I have two questions as we wrap. One, how you got from being a technician into this current role with Auto Tech Ventures, And then what was your biggest miss? You talked about one of your biggest successful ventures, Lyft, Lyft. And yes, we've heard of it. But what was your biggest miss? But first of all, how did you go from becoming an auto technician into your current role?
Sure. I just grew up here in Silicon Valley as a car guy,
Yeah.
building cars, racing cars, terrorizing the streets of Menlo Park with my muscle cars. Growing up, went off to college in upstate New York, and then started to develop hybrid vehicles out there. This was in 2003, 2004. So that started taking me out to Detroit.
Yeah.
And then in graduate school here at Stanford, I also did automotive engineering, doing ADAS research, advanced driver assistance systems research. And then after finishing grad school, went and joined this electric car recharging infrastructure startup, which took me out to Israel and Japan and China for a
Wow.
bunch of years. That startup eventually went bust. Um, it was called Better Place, and then got involved with a bunch of different other startups, either as an angel investor or advisor, board member, and then eventually started Auto Tech Ventures because I saw the tech industry, Silicon Valley, where I grew up, starting to converge with the auto industry that I love.
Yeah.
um, those two worlds kind of colliding. I thought the world might need a venture capital firm to serve as a bridge between the incumbent auto industry and these little, tech startups that have a dream.
Yeah. It does automotive, given your electric background, does does demand end up catching up with supply in EVs? Does the market have EVs wrong? Do you think there's a much broader future? Like, it feels like there's excess supply right now relative to demand and not quite the infrastructure yet. Do you think it catches up? Are you bullish? Are you investing in hardcore EV tech?
We don't really invest as much in, let's say, technology that would go into an EV, right? So hardware and the like, capital intensive solutions, we don't really invest in that. However, we invest in services related to EVs. So for example, we've invested into a startup called RepairWise that does remote diagnostics of EVs.
Yeah.
I mentioned earlier we invested into a startup called Plug, that is a wholesale used EV auction, right?
Yeah.
So there's all
Yeah.
these kind of services and sales and after sale services related to EVs that we think
Yeah.
are really interesting. I think there's going to be just a continuous march of increased market share among EVs in the United States. We're not going to be as fast as Norway and other
Yeah.
places, maybe not as fast
Yeah.
as China. But I think EVs are going to slowly, eat away at share, and so more and more services will be needed to, let's say, maintain and service those EVs over their lifetime and ultimately dispose of them.
Well, Quin Garcia, we absolutely appreciate you coming on the show to peel back kind of the cover on this, everything you do at Auto Tech Ventures and kind of this investment in new ideas. Uh, in 2 seconds or less, biggest miss. What's something you were given the opportunity to invest in and you failed, and then we got to let you go.
Techion, missed that one.
Okay, okay, all right.
Missed
The
that one.
Techion Group came to you. Okay, all right,
Yep.
all right.
Nice.
You Techion is an interesting one because a lot of companies, Microsoft included, has tried to get into the DMS game, and Microsoft couldn't do it, right? They kind of threw their hands up. Now, this is just my understanding. I don't know if that's true or not, but Techion is in there
Okay.
in a
Yep.
very crowded field. So you said
ACV
no at some point.
auctions. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah.
ACV,
Yeah.
another whiff.
Yeah. 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 Well, wish you all the luck in finding that successful venture. What a fun field you play in, and it's always fun again to see all the different areas that work in the automotive arena in automotive world. And I think you are part of what makes automotive great in the U.S. And since I'm in Canada, I'm going to say North America. So, Quin Garcia, Managing Director, Auto Tech Ventures. Thanks for being on the show.
Thanks, guys. Enjoyed it.